When it comes to something called ChainSpec, did you know that they recently made a post indicating how Hedera's maximum transactions per second is actually allegedly around 16,199 transactions per second? Why does this matter? Well, it's because what this means is that it's actually 11 times higher, allegedly, than Ethereum's maximum transactions per second. Now, that's according to them. But I want to explain in today's video why I think that is very well the case and why I think this could maybe help Hedera moving forward in terms of better adoption. However, I first want to clarify, nothing I say is financial advice. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. It's just my opinion, my perspective, and my outlook when it comes to this recent statistic that I saw. But besides that, again, that's kind of impressive. People don't usually think about, let's say, Hedera having a maximum transactions per second that is like over 10 times higher than Ethereum's maximum transactions per second. Usually people don't think about it that way. But I think the reason why people usually think about it is because they associate fantastic fundamentals with popularity. Like some people think that, oh, if something is very popular, that means the fundamentals are the best of the best. But it doesn't always work that way necessarily, or should I say quite necessarily in this case, because it's just a little bit of a different dynamic within this space. Ethereum's been around for a very long time. I would arguably say it's the most popular altcoin as of right now, whereas some other projects out there appeared, but even though some of them arguably have better fundamentals, they're just not that popular, so they don't get that recognition. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that Hedera is bad in terms of the fundamentals. One of the major reasons why I think it's even able to have those statistics in the first place is because Hedera Hashgraph does not utilize traditional blockchain technology, whereas Ethereum is a layer 1 blockchain. Hedera Hashgraph uses something called a directed acyclic graph. Now granted, because a directed acyclic graph is a more unique concept and it's just more, I guess, revolutionary, some people like to say, it just resulted in some fundamentals being a lot better when compared to traditional blockchain technology. There's nothing wrong with it, it's just kind of the evolution of where the space has been heading, but I'm saying having a directed acyclic graph, which allegedly is very fast, very scalable, and also in terms of energy consumption, allegedly it's kind of low. When we take a look at all those factors, it's no surprise to me why Hedera is actually able to process, again, 11 times more than Ethereum's transactions per second in terms of the maximum we've seen so far, allegedly, according to this post by ChainSpec. So I think all of this right here does maybe indicate that, you know what, some enterprises out there, they could care less about popularity. Some of them are just purely looking for actual fundamentals. That's the thing. Some of them don't really care about the cool factor, the amount of holders, where it's listed. Some enterprises really don't care about that type of stuff because when they want to adopt something, they usually want to adopt it to benefit their business, not to make them look cool to the retail market. That sometimes isn't the case. So Hedera being fast like that, allegedly, or being that fast, I should say, I think it does give it a better unique selling point to kind of attract better partners moving forward, better enterprise adoption, better integrations. I think it's only natural because a lot of these enterprises, they want things that are fast. A lot of these businesses, they want to be faster. The reason why is because some of them are operating in industries and market sectors that have very razor thin margins, in which case their competitor and them in some cases, they're very head to head and the profit margin sometimes just isn't that good, or isn't that much, I should say. So every slight advantage does matter. For those type of industries in particular, adopting something that's fast but not necessarily the most popular, sometimes it could work well for them. That's the thing. Now in a random make-believe scenario, some people like to say, well, if something's only a couple seconds faster or 1 second faster or even 10 seconds faster, who cares? I agree with that if it's for like the retail market and we're only using something like once, twice, or maybe 5 times a month. It wouldn't really matter, those differences between one place compared to a different place. It doesn't really matter. But if that action is done like thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions per day, if that particular action, or certain action I should say, that's going to add up eventually over days, weeks, months, and years. So that's going to really matter. And eventually over the long haul, even though the difference is very minuscule in the beginning, it starts to really pull away. It starts to have this massive gap. So that's why a lot of these enterprises do care about things being fast. That's the thing. Maybe The retail market doesn't really care, but we have to consider this. If there is better enterprise adoption, that's inherently just going to benefit the place, or the project, I should say. So again, if people complain about, oh, enterprise adoption isn't going to help, I disagree with that. I think it's actually greatly going to help because it allows for better notoriety for that particular project. And also, I think it validifies its use case. So at the end of the day, it's not a net negative. I think if anything, it's a net positive. So if Hedera has a certain fundamental quality that makes it a little bit more attractive to developers and maybe towards enterprises, I view it as a good thing. I don't view it as a bad thing. Maybe the retail market doesn't really care because they're like, oh, wow, HBAR is still slightly under 9 cents, so it hasn't really done much ever since my last video. Basically, it hasn't really had any sort of major difference that I can notice. But besides that, people are often very focused on this, but I tend to want to focus on the fundamentals because if the market were to pick up, places that are favorable for developers to enter, they usually have a lot more attention because developers typically, they want to enter the most from what I've seen when the market is doing better. They usually don't really want to enter when the space isn't doing the best. So a place that's primed and ready for enterprise adoption and better, I guess, conditions for developers to build on later, those are the ones that usually we see kind of hypothetically go along with the ride. Like let's take a look at Solana, for instance, not too long ago. Take a look at Cardano. Take a look at, let's say in the case of Ethereum, right? But Hedera is a little bit different. It has that special ingredient, right? Where Hedera Hashgraph, it doesn't utilize traditional blockchain technology. It's a directed acyclic graph. So some developers out there that may not want to use traditional blockchain technology, Hedera is right there. And if Hedera has better adoption, better notoriety, inherently, sometimes the retail market does follow. So keep in mind, yes, HBAR is around under 9 cents as of right now. But basically, as of right now, it's around 4 times lower than where it was in January of last year. If it just goes back to that, it's already time for me to dance. That's the thing. It's already time for me to, party, I would say. But actually, if HBAR exceeded that, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me either because Hedera, I would say that the governing council got a lot better. The council now includes FedEx. We take a look at McLaren. Google is still there, so it's pretty impressive. And I think that if anything, Hedera is now known for AI when compared to back then. Also, furthermore, Hedera recently released the Agent Kit version 4, which makes it more favorable for developers, in my opinion. And I even made a video when it comes to that where I broke it down a little bit more. So yeah, that was a pretty cool video. In case someone watched it or didn't watch it, feel free to watch that one. But besides that, Hedera, I feel like fundamentally is better right now, or should I say way better than where it was last year. So if the market conditions just return back to that point, I'm not saying even exceed that. If HBAR actually exceeded what it did, comparatively speaking, to where it once was in January of last year, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. But if the market conditions were way better, and yet Hedera now has way better fundamentals, if it went way past what it did last year, it wouldn't surprise me at all, just considering the fundamental improvements it had. But it's a all hypothetical scenario as of right now. I don't know when things could ever pick up. I don't know when things are ever going to return. I don't know if they could ever, even if return. But one thing I do know, though, is that I'm going to wait. How long I'm going to have to wait, I have zero idea. What do you think is going to happen? Me pulling up some price chart, drawing some random triangles is going to randomly and magically, I guess, figure out when the market's going to recover? No way, in my opinion. How? That doesn't even make sense. So what? I pull up a price chart, draw some random triangles, and suddenly the market's like, oh yeah, Lee the captain, we're going to follow him. Like, what? How does that make sense? They're not going to do that. The market's not going to care about what I have to do. I'd rather focus on the fundamentals, the updates, and I take a look at where are developers heading? Where are these whales believing in, right? And basically, I try to focus on those type of projects and stay patient with them. But this is just my mindset. However, I'm not telling anyone to do anything. I want to say thank you so much for watching today's video. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope you all have a very nice day. It's Lee the Captain. I'm out. Peace. Bye.